Inc. for the construction of a new home in San Jose for $1,235,000. Over the course of the project, Green Bay received $1,207,000. Construction began in October of 2018 but ceased in January 2022, with the project only partially completed. A complaint was filed with CSLB and an industry expert was hired to inspect and evaluate items of alleged substandard workmanship. The IE determined that some of the work deviated from the approved plans and specifications, as well as from accepted industry standards. The IE estimated the cost to correct at just under $100,000. Upon completion of the investigation, an accusation was filed which resulted in the revocation of Green Bay's contractor's license, effective July 3rd, 2024. The next highlight I would like to share is on page 117 and is titled, Tubbs Fire Case Ends with Guilty Verdict for Revoked Contractor. In November 2017, Calistoga homeowners who lost their home in the devastating Tubbs fire hired Ruben Roncancio, a revoked licensee, to perform the construction debris removal. Rather than having a set contract price as required by law, the contractual agreement was that Roncancio would submit invoices for work performed. Roncancio performed minimal work while submitting invoices totaling $16,683. Of the invoiced amount, $5,747 was specifically for disposal fees. However, receipts from the landfill showed a total of $990 in charges. The homeowners paid Roncancio a total of $14,000, then refused to pay any more due to disputes over the invoices, which led to Roncancio filing a mechanics lien against the property in the amount of $18,000. A CSLB complaint was received and investigated by our Special Investigations Unit and ultimately referred to the Napa County District Attorney's Office, where they filed felony and misdemeanor charges against Roncancio. In September 2024, the case went to a jury trial. On October 4, 2024, the jury came back with a guilty verdict for contracting without a license, filing a false document with a government agency, and perjury. Roncancio was sentenced in November 2024 to 90 days jail time and 2 years of formal probation. This concludes my highlights. I will turn it back over to you, Chair Kobos.
Thank you, Steve. Continuing on the statistical update, you will note at the top of page 113 some staffing information. Enforcement supervisors and managers continue to prioritize filling vacancies. As of October 31st, 2024, there were only 10 vacant positions within the enforcement division. Interviews have already been conducted and candidates selected for 5 of these vacant positions. On page 119, you will find complaint statistics. For the period of January 1st, 2024 to October 31st, 2024, a total of 18,297 complaints have been initiated. CSLB is on track to receive more than 20,000 consumer complaints this calendar year. As enforcement chair, I plan to convene the enforcement committee meeting early next year to review enforcement prioritization guidelines and opportunities to work with industry to address contractors receiving multiple complaints. With current staffing levels, the optimum maximum enforcement division caseload is 4,860 pending complaints. As of November 7th, 2024, the pending caseload was 5,919. The major contributor to this increased caseload continues to be residential solar installation complaints against a small number of contractors that are receiving an excessive number of complaints. As discussed in prior board meetings, our newly formed multiple offender unit is tasked with investigating contractors with 10 or more open complaints and taking swift and aggressive disciplinary action when violations of contractor's license law are identified. Staff Services Analysts, SSA, and Special Investigators, SI, in the Enforcement Division are working very hard to keep up with the incoming complaints. The weighted monthly case closing average per special investigator in investigative centers remains steady at 8 closures per month, 2 less than the closure goal of 10. SSAs assigned to the two CSLB intake mediation centers have done a remarkable job of mediating consumer complaints. From January 1st, 2024 through October 31st, 2024, staff's efforts have resulted in $31.6 million in restitution to financially injured parties. Another board goal is to appropriately disposition all but 100 complaints within the 270 days of receipt. As of October 31st, 2024, 262 complaints exceeded 270 days in age. Enforcement supervisors continue to work closely with their staff and provide guidance during monthly case reviews in an effort to reduce the backlog of aged cases. Beginning at the bottom of page 119, you will find information regarding CSLB-sponsored arbitration and disciplinary action statistics. Let us know if you have any questions about those. And finally, I will provide a brief update on proactive enforcement, which is conducted by 27 special investigators assigned to the Statewide Investigative Fraud Team, or SWIFT. This information begins on page 121 of your packet. From January 1st, 2024 to October 31st, 2024, SWIFT conducted 38 undercover sting operations across the state, participated in 362 sweep days, and responded to 777 leads, or tips received from industry and the public. Investigators closed 2,750 cases as a result of the operations, with 831 cases resulting in administrative or criminal legal action. Additionally, over 981 advisory notices were issued for relatively minor violations. Beginning on page 123, you'll see that the Enforcement Division's Experience Verification Unit has conducted 701 application investigations during the period of October 1st, 2022 to October 31st, 2024. Of the total 444, of that total, 144 were verified or approved, 126 were withdrawn, and 182 were denied, and 8 denials were appealed. At the bottom of page 124, there is an overview of current investigations regarding fraud in the accessory dwelling unit market. As reported in prior board meetings, CSLB has recently received a significant number of consumer-filed complaints regarding contractors failing to complete accessory dwelling units ADU construction projects and causing considerable financial harm. As you recall, consumers who faced issues with ADU projects had an opportunity to share their concerns and ideas with the Legislative Committee during its meeting on September 18, 2024. The committee discussed ideas on enhancing consumer protection related to ADUs, including ensuring that ADU contracts complied with home improvement payment restrictions. 3 of the most egregious violators currently being investigated by CSLB are anchored tiny homes, next generation builders, and multitasker. I'm happy to report that anchored tiny homes license was revoked on November 8, 2024, and investigators are working closely with the local district attorneys in triaging all remaining complaints for potential criminal violations. Next generation builders and multitasker constructions are both operating in Southern California and generating dozens of complaints. In one case, an Oceanside family paid over $193,000 to multitasker for an ADU project intended for a family member with Alzheimer's disease, but the project was never started nearly 2 years later. Such delays have caused severe financial and emotional distress for affected homeowners. And lastly, at the bottom of page 125, you will find the Enforcement Training Update, which includes the most recent Enforcement Academy, which has held at CSLB headquarters during the week of September 16th, 2024. Other significant recent training events was the annual NASCLA, National Association of State Contractors Licensing Agencies conference from September 9th through the 12th. The packet incorrectly listed the dates as November 9th through the 12th. CSLB was able to send 18 enforcement staff who received training on various topics, including investigative techniques and caseload management. That concludes the enforcement program statistical update. This is an informational item only. No action is required of the board. Do any board members have any comments?
Yeah, I have a comment. I just want to make sure we recognize Delphine Tran again. If you saw like the total amount of experience, total complaints or total amount verified was 700, and she was like 400 of those. So again, she's doing great work. And why it's so important is, as someone applies for a license, we want to make sure that they have the proper level of journey person experience in that classification before they actually are approved. So that's for the consumer protection. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
I have a question. Is there a pocket of monies somewhere for consumers to be made whole when the businesses go out of business? Because if they're out of business and unlicensed, they don't have any, there's no way to recoup the money to the consumer. Does the district attorney have a pocket of money? Does it come out of general fund? Does CSLB do anything? Everybody's saying no? No? Consumers just out.
For the licensed contractors, they have the $25,000 bond, but that would be it.
Any other comments from the board? Are there any comments from the public here in the room? No comments? Thank you. Robin? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, okay. F2, okay. The next agenda item is the review, thanks. Review, discussion, and possible action on supporting information included with solar energy system disclosure document pursuant to subdivision C of the Business and Professions Code, section 7169. At this time, I will turn it over to Registrar David Vogt to cover this section. Dave.
Thank you, Cobos. This relates to a long-standing collaboration between the CSLB and the Public Utilities Commission. It is a disclosure document for consumers purchasing residential solar and storage systems. Before I go into a bit further, I just wanted to share that there's an interesting dynamic at play here, in that the PUC staff cannot work directly with the California Solar and Storage Association or other industry stakeholders, unless it's in a publicly agendized meeting. At CSLB, we do not have that same restriction. So we've been the intermediary between the two parties. And I wanted to give a little shout out to Mike Jabnetsky on our executive staff, who did take the lead role in working, putting this proposal that's before you together. Now, the document in the packet is a supplemental to a one-page solar disclosure document that has been in effect since 2019. The law that required that one-page document also provided for an optional consumer disclosure document, and again, that's what we're going to be discussing. The purpose of the optional document is for consumers to understand the potential energy savings they will achieve in the first year of their new system. It also provides other information that may be useful to consumers when purchasing a solar system. If you take a look at it, that information will relate to really identifying the contractor and the payment terms. How is it being financed? Is it a power purchase agreement, a lease agreement? Now, while I mentioned the document is discretionary, the Public Utility Commission does intend to develop this document and require that it be used by contractors within the investor-owned utility districts. Our new board member, Joseph, represents SMUD in Sacramento, which would not be an investor-owned utility, so that's a public utility. The investor-owned utilities are San Diego Gas and Electric, PG&E, Southern California Edison. They are intending to have a full commission meeting in January, and so The statute requires that CSLB and PUC work together to develop this document. While we do think we're very close to having an agreement on the document, I would say that in the last few days, I've been involved in 2 meetings with Public Utility Commission staff, and I had the opportunity to meet with the California Solar and Storage Association yesterday. And in doing that, I've asked that Josh Buswell Charco, who's with us today, attend this meeting and discuss any concerns that he may have or support of this. From a staff perspective, I have a motion that I could read now or later. I'm not sure what's most appropriate. But in general, what we're asking you to consider is approving this document in concept and give staff the ability to make non-substantial edits prior to the PUC commission meeting. And what that would mean is we'd continue to work with Josh, we'd continue to work with PUC staff to finalize it and then put it before the commissioners. The motion would also include that once the PUC commissioners approve this document, that we would post it on the CSLB website. John, should I read the motion now, or what would be most appropriate? What
I
we're
think
proposing.
you might invite
Josh to speak.
board and public comment
Okay.
before we develop
Okay.
the motion.
Board first, board comment first.
On? Hello? Yeah, hi, Josh Buswell Charco, Deputy Director at CALSA. Appreciate the opportunity to engage with you all on this. I've been working with Mike on this supplemental disclosure document. This first came around back, I think, in 2019. Then we've been consulting with the commission as well. You know, as the registrar said, it's very close to done. There were just a few areas of feedback that I've been working to solicit from my members. We want to obviously make sure contractors are providing accurate information and then also not providing information that they're unable to provide because they're just not privy to that kind of information. So the kinds of changes that it looks like we're going to recommend are very cosmetic, just a few tweaks here and there, but nonetheless important changes, we think. So I look forward to continuing to work with Mike. I'll have feedback to him shortly.
No board comment. I'd maybe hear the recommended staff motion.
Okay, the recommended staff motion is to approve in concept the solar energy system supplemental information document that's included in pages 130 through 134, 135 of the board packet. This information is about energy savings for consumers going solar and other consumer protection information about purchasing solar energy systems. To authorize staff to provide non-substantive edits to the document after further consultation with industry and the PUC before it is submitted to the Commission in January 2025. Any edits made will have to be consistent with Business and Professions Code Section 7169. And to authorize staff to finalize the document and post it on the website for public use following Public Utility Commission approval.
I'll make a motion to go with staff recommendation as read.
Second. Call for board comment and public comment on the motion as stated.
Enforcement Chair Kobos.
Seek a motion to approve?
There was a motion in a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Call for the question.
Make a motion to call for the question.
Okay. Michael Mark,
Yes.
Miguel Galarza,
Aye.
Alan Guy,
Aye.
Joel Barton,
Aye.
Rodney Cobos.
Aye.
Amanda Gallo and Jacob Lopez both have excused absences. Diana Love. Henry Nutt.
Aye.
Steve Pinelli. Joseph Preciado.
Aye.
Jim Ruane.
Aye.
Thomas Louise and Mary Tykert both have excused absences. Motion passes 10-0.
Does that conclude your enforcement,
That
Chair?
concludes enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Enforcement Chair Cobos. We will move on to Licensing Chair Jim Ruane.
Thank you, Chair Mark. Good morning. I am Jim Ruane, the 2024-2025 Licensing Committee Chair, providing the Licensing and Testing Division update today with assistance from Licensing Chief Carol Gagnon. The Licensing and Testing Statistical Update Agenda Item G1 begins on page 137. Regarding applications, the table on page 141 indicates the number of applications received for new licenses, additional classifications, replacing qualifiers, and home improvement salespersons. As you can see, CSLB received over 12,000 applications in the last quarter. The number was slightly decreased from the previous quarter, but this typically occurs as California moves into the fall season. On page 142, you can see that all of our processing times are staying close to or under 3 weeks. Staff has kept licensing processing times at or below 3 weeks for over a year now and are doing an excellent job at keeping up with incoming applications and renewals. A few units have even managed to keep their response times under 2 weeks for the entire year. Recognition is given to the bonds, add class, qualifier replacement, home improvement salesperson registration, and certified license history teams. The table on page 143 lists a disposition of applications by fiscal year. The number of voided applications per year has gone down from 2022-2023, meaning more applications are continuing through the licensure process instead of voiding out. As seen on page 144, CSLB received 29,000 renewal applications in the last quarter. This is slightly down from the previous quarter, but again, this is typical for the fall season. Page 149 indicates the work of CSLB's Judgments Unit. In October 2024, 64 licenses were notified of outstanding liabilities, 78 licenses were notified of final judgments, and 166 licenses were notified of payment of claims from bond companies. Once staff received completed paperwork from the courts, bond companies, FTB, or other agencies, they send a letter to the license holder informing them that they need to comply, or their license will be suspended. The suspend line on the table is the number of licenses suspended that month, and the reinstate line is the number of licenses that paid their liability, judgment, or claim and had their license moved back to clear active status. I will now ask Licensing Chief Carol Gagnon to give the testing update, which starts on page 151. Carol?
Thank you, Jim. The table on page 151 indicates that between November 2023 and October 2024, PSI exams administered a little more than 54,000 exams for CSLB candidates. In October 2024, CSLB hit record numbers with over 4,900 of CSLB's exams being scheduled at a PSI test center. Currently, there are no backlogs in testing. As mentioned on page 152, candidates can take their exams in 20 test centers in California and an additional test center in Oregon. The most popular test center is still Sacramento, which has administered over 6,300 exams for CSLB in the last 12 months. Other popular test centers are Agora Hills near Malibu, El Monte, Riverside, and San Diego. When candidates register to take their exams, they can pick the test center location, date, and time that they prefer. As indicated on page 153, the Examination Development Unit released one new exam between August and the end of October 2024, which was the C11 elevator exam. A new exam is one that has been completely revised from the ground up with a new occupational analysis, item writing, updated references, and a new pass point. This happens for every exam every 5 years on average. Note that there are additional 5 examinations that are over at PSI being programmed for their release. That would be the A, General Engineering, the B, General Building, the C23, ornamental metal, C28, lock and security, and the C50 reinforcing steel. So those will be coming out in the next few months and probably mentioned in the next board packet. The table on page 154 indicates that in the last year between August 2023 and July 2024, over 9,000 Spanish translated exams have been taken by CSLB candidates. CSLB staff and bilingual subject matter experts have reviewed the wording in 6 of those Spanish language exams to ensure that the Spanish used is Latin American Spanish, which is more common in California than European Spanish. Future bank translations will specifically request that Latin American Spanish be used. Staff are still assessing the impact of these changes as the new versions of the exams are being sent to the test centers. I will now ask Licensing Committee Chair Jim Ruane to report on the grant administration for the Construction Management Education Grant account. Agenda item G2, which begins on page 157.
Thank you, Carol. Item number 2, CMEA grants for 2025. Please turn to page 157 for agenda item G2. At the end of each year, staff requests the board review and potentially approve grant awards for the Construction Management Education account. As seen on page 160 this year, the board requested and received approval from the Department of Consumer Affairs to increase disbursement authority to $225,000 in fiscal year 2025-26. This will provide for additional funding for institutions that offer construction management education. This is done each year based on the amount of funds in the account. This year, 6 colleges submitted grant applications. The $225,000 is distributed among 6 public colleges selected by the Construction Management Education Advisory Committee. The members of the committee are listed on page 159. Revenues in the account are from voluntary contributions made by licensees at the time of the license renewal fee payment and are sufficient to support this request. I'd like to call on board members for any comments. Any public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, I would like to ask the board to consider the following motion. Direct staff to distribute the 2025 CMEA grant awards to the identified colleges according to the staff recommendation on page 160. Based on approval from the Department of Finance to expend $225,000 from the CMEA account. Please state your last name and for motion in a second.
Guy first, Finelli second.
Okay, thank you. Any final board comment or public comment? Okay, Robin?
The register folk will call the roll.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me. Michael Mark,
Yes.
Miguel Galarza.
Aye.
Alan Guy,
Aye.
Joel Barton,
Aye.
Rodney Cobos,
Aye.
Miguel Galarza.
Aye again.
Okay, we'll do it a third time to be sure. Diana Love,
Aye.
Henry Nutt,
Aye.
Steve Pinelli,
Aye.
Joseph Preciado,
Aye.
Jim Royne.
Aye.
Motion carries, unanimous.
All right, thank you. Our item number 3 is proposal to create a new classification for wildfire debris removal and flood muckout. Carol will now address the staff proposal to create a new debris removal classification. This is agenda item G3, starting on page 161. Carol?
Thank you. First, I wanted to explain that the headings in the board packet are not correct. We have decided to take a different approach related to consumer protection. So what we are proposing is a C class, a specialty class, not a D limited specialty. I just want to clarify that. So, and the C class information is in your packet. That was correct. It was just the heading that was wrong. So on page 163, I direct your attention there, agenda item G3. Californians have faced an increasing number of natural disasters over the past 20 years, with wildfires and floods having the biggest impact on homeowners. In 2024 alone, over 7,000 wildfires burned more than 1 million acres in California, surpassing the totals from previous years. These fires destroyed 2,077 structures and resulted in 1 fatality. Homeowners cleaning up after a natural disaster have a choice of certain license classifications they can hire to do the work, as it stands now. A B, general building contractor, if they also have the contract to build the new home. An A general engineering or C21 building moving demolition contractor can remove debris and perform the minor and significant demolition necessary to remove parts of or the entire structure. And a C61, D64 limited specialty, non-specialized classification can just do minor debris removal and minor alterations to structures in a post-disaster area. However, none of these trades are specifically designed to work in disaster cleanup. Cleaning out debris after a disaster is dangerous work. According to the California Department of Industrial Relations website, the dangers include exposure to toxic gases, still smoldering debris if it's after a fire, collapsing structures, live electrical wires, leaking gas pipes, and toxic ash from the burned plastics, paints, and other materials that were used to build the home. With floods, additional dangers can include mold and sewage. In Butte County, the site of the recent park fire, as well as the site of the Camp Fire in 2018 that destroyed the city of Paradise, they reached out to CSLB to ask which trades could be used to clean out home sites after the park fire. This prompted staff discussions about how to help Butte County now and what can be done in the future to ensure that contractors doing debris removal will have knowledge of all the safety protocols needed for the work. For now, staff is working with Butte County to give them a list of the contractors in their area who can do the work under their current license. In addition, staff will continue to work with Butte County and the Governor's Office of Emergency Services to ensure sufficient contractors are available to meet the existing need and address any potential licensing hurdles. Staff also proposes the creation of a new C specialty classification that will cover the specific safety and logistical factors related to clearing home sites after a wildfire or flood, such as the PPE needed, the specialized training, debris disposal methods, etc. So I will now turn it back to Jim to ask for comment.
Thank you, Carol. Any comment or questions from board members?
I have a question. Is there not a way to make sure that the C61 actually just ends up being able to do all the cleanup as well and make it as part of the C61 requirement instead of just giving them minimal and make it where they have to actually know all this for removal of, debris with fire and toxics and gas and sewer, because sometimes they're going into places they don't even know that that's there until they start removing the debris. So why not just make that whole license a part of this new license and make them actually have to be trained for that?
Part of the difficulty that we encountered is that the people that would have the experience doing this clean out and would have the training are those that were already listed in here, the A's, the B's, the C21s, and maybe a D64 if they happen to have enough experience doing it. So what part of our concern was, where are we going to find someone with 4 years of experience in this to be able to qualify for a new D license? So that was part of our issue with just creating a D and putting it out there and doing it.
Yes, Miguel?
Yeah, was there not a movement or some thought process in expanding the hazardous classification to go beyond underground tank removal? As a lot of these constituents that we're speaking of are in Superfund sites, and typically, in my example, we can't work on a Superfund site unless we have a hazardous certification, which deals with toxicity, RCA, right? Ignitability, reactivity, and corrosivity. So was there a change in the direction we were going with that, or I'd love to hear that.
Well, a number of years ago, we had looked into expanding the HAZ classification, and coronavirus happened, and we got really busy, and it sort of got tabled. So that information and that research is still there, and that's something we would consider with this. We just haven't, it's only come up in the past few weeks. So we're still considering all of our options, which we will, of course, bring before the board as we get farther along in this. That's why I can't, propose a trade description for you, because we're still working out all the details of what we want to do. But yeah, I think that would be a good possibility.
Good. Alan?
2 questions. Will contractors still be able to complete this work under their A, B, or C21 license?
Correct. Yes, they would.
Thank you. And then the state of California has a very well-run program for this. My firm has done a lot of it over the years. State of California does require a HAZWOPER certification to do this work, which kind of pile on what Miguel said, I think is very good, because there is a lot of toxic substances that are cleaned up. And when we've been in these disaster zones, we've seen people with or without the license and without a HAZWOPer doing it for the homeowners, and it is putting the environment and the workers at risk because they're not following protocols. So my recommendation would be, even if we do this classification, I think you should still require a HAZWOPer certification to do this work to protect the environment and the workers.
Thank you. I'm going to make a note of that.
Good. Any other comments or questions from board members? Any comments or questions for the public on this item?
Licensing Chair, Ruin, I have a question. So
Yes.
what would be the expected timelines for something like this? For go through the rulemaking process, and obviously there's like immediate need, it sounds like. So how this is future, but for the immediate need.
So for the immediate need, we will continue to work with Butte County to get them the names of and addresses of contractors in their area that could do the work under the A, the B, and the C21 and the D64 limited specialty. As for the exam process, it's probably going to take 18 months to 2 years. For the regulation process, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca because she'll know how long that takes. And these can be partly done simultaneously as long as we know what you have approved for the board trade description. Exams can get started.
About 18 months to 2 years for regs.
Yeah, if I could just make one comment, one thing we may want to consider is having a licensing committee meeting in January or February, because there's a lot of interest in this.
Yeah.
Cal OES and Butte County officials want to be part of the discussion, so I hope that that can happen.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else from the board? Anything from the public? All right. I'd like to ask the board to consider the following motion: direct staff to begin work on the regulations necessary to add a new C specialty classification for disaster debris removal.
So moved. Cobos.
Second.
There's a motion and a second.
I just, on the question, in the meeting packet, it's the request of a licensing committee to take the lead on pursuing. So that's what Register Votes stated. Sometime January, February, the licensing committee. So the board is taking action today just to move this forward to the license committee to have further discussion. That's what the board is taking. That there's a potential for a new classification, but the licensing committee need to really work out the kinks.
Right, for clarification.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Any other public comment? Robin, will you take the roll, please?
Just to clarify, it was the classification C for debris removal?
Yes.
Okay,
To investigate and look into the possibility.
okay.
Guess he heard you.
Michael Mark,
Yes.
Miguel Galarza,
Aye.
Alan Guy,
Aye.
Joel Barton,
Aye.
Rodney Cobos,
Aye.
Amanda Gallo and Jacob Lopez both have excused absences. Diana Love,
Aye.
Henry Nutt,
Aye.
Steve Pinelli, Joseph Preciado,
Aye.
Jim Ruane.
Aye.
Motion passes 10-0.
Thank you, and this concludes the licensing and testing update.
Thank you, License Committee Chair Jim Ruane. I appreciate the information. So moving on, we're moving on to agenda item H, Public Affairs. This is the last item to today's agenda for public. We will have a closed session afterward. With that, I turn it over to Public Affairs Committee Chair Diana Love for the Public Affairs update.
Thank you, Chair. I will now share the public affairs update starting on page 169. The Public Affairs Office, or PAO, is responsible for media, industry, licensing, and consumer communications, as well as outreach. They provide proactive public relations, respond to media inquiries, and develop and distribute publications and newsletters. PAO creates content for CSLB social media channels and website, including webcasts and videos. Regarding the website, Public Affairs has updated the alerts box on the homepage to remind consumers and contractors about home improvement contract rules, especially regarding progress payments. Our website also includes the Disaster Help Center, which resources for consumers. From August through October, CSLB participated in 9 local assistance centers as requested by the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. in all responses to wildfires around the state. In the area of video and digital services, PAO continues to focus on creating informative videos for consumers, licensees, and applicants. Recent videos have included tips for hiring a licensed contractor for various home improvement projects, including a tips for hiring an HVAC contractor that will be shared later. The videos are shared on YouTube and other social media platforms and archived on the CSLB website. PAO has also prioritized translating and producing Spanish language consumer and industry videos. You can see a list of 5 of live and recorded videos starting on page 171. On the same page, you'll see how PAO continues to increase CSLB's following on social media by improving engagement with applicants, licensees, the news media, and other stakeholders. CSLB maintains an active presence on Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, and LinkedIn, where all platforms continue to show growth. The most popular post on Facebook was posted in August, which reminded both contractors and consumers about when workers' compensation insurance is required. Posts about sting operations also continue to be popular on social media. On page 174, PAO shows an updated subscriber list of nearly 192,000, which includes the licensee information listserv. The subscriber list also receives CSLB's industry bulletins and press releases. Between August 1st and October 31st, CSLB issued industry bulletins related to more detail about workers' compensation code requirements law that took effect in July, along with bulletin in October warning contractors to not click on suspicious emails requesting a digital signature. PAO responded to 35 media inquiries between August and the end of October. The media coverage focused on various topics, with the majority focused on issues consumers are having with accessory dwelling units or solar projects. Public Affairs also issued a consumer alert in late October to warn consumers to not pay too much money up front on home improvement projects, including both ADUs and solar. On page 176 shows the outreach events CSLB attended between August and October. Our outreach coordinator has been busy providing key consumer protection information to seniors and other stakeholders. She plans to reach out to new legislators in January in our efforts to reach more consumers through these events. You'll also see on this page a list of the publications and reports CSLB completed between August and October. They included the final 2025 through 2027 strategic plan that was provided at September's meeting, the fall newsletter, and what you should know before hiring a licensed contractor. The Public Affairs Office also writes and publishes content for internal communications. On page 177, you will see a list of the intranet articles PAO has between August and October, highlighting upcoming meetings, DAC's cornhole tournament, and a celebration of the accomplishments of Northern California Enforcement Academy graduates. The intranet is accessible to all CSLB employees around the state. Also on page 177, you will see that CSLB's Public Information Center continues to see low wait times for callers. The wait times have been under the board goal of 6 minutes for all of 2024. Since this is an information item, no action is required of the board. Are there any board comments? Are there any comments from the public? That concludes the Public Affairs Program update. And now it looks like I am doing H2. which begins on page 181. Last week, I was part of the Handy Person Advisory Committee meeting with member Joel Barton, where we discussed the implementation of AB 2622, which will increase the existing licensure exemption from $500 to $1,000, as long as the work does not involve a permit or involve employing anyone. We reviewed the press release and industry bulletin and provided some additional edits to Public Affairs Management to make the new rules clear for both consumers and industry. Consumer education will be a big part of the implementation. In addition to the press release and industry bulletin, Public Affairs included basic information in its fall newsletter and will include more details in the winter newsletter, all of which will be shared on social media. Public Affairs is also updating 10 publications where the $500 amount is mentioned, along with revising outreach presentations for both Senior Scam Stopper and Consumer Scam Stopper seminars. We also learned about enforcement's effort to implement AB 2622, consumer protection measures, such as training staff about the new exemption amount and tracking complaints for construction work under $1,000 to determine if consumers are facing harm. IT is updating the codes in CSLB system to make for easy tracking. The legislation will hopefully lead to an increase in B2 residential remodeling applications, as the ability to perform unlicensed work for higher value may provide experience necessary to qualify for B2 classifications. This item is educational only, but I would be interested in any additional items from board members to continue to ensure consumer protection with the new law. Do any board members have any comments?
I would just make a comment. We want to make sure it's clear to the consumers of California that if a permit is required, then that law the exemption is not $1,000 level, or if they have another person working for them. So just please, on our social media posts and all posts going forward, and maybe on a banner on our webpage, is yes, the limit was raised to $1,000, but not if you employ someone else and if you require a building permit. So we just gotta make sure that's clear.
Thank you. Are any comments from the public or any other board? Excuse me.
One quick question. Was there a provision in here that, to your point, getting the experience under B for B2, is there a provision that shows that you're actually paying taxes on the money that you're earning versus cash wages or receiving cash payment?
I think I'll refer to Registrar Bolt.
Well, there's different ways of qualifying your experience. And so, yes, many of our applicants will voluntarily show tax records or pay records, where others will provide a list of jobs that they've performed. So, we try to be somewhat creative to work with the applicant to qualify their experience if they in fact have it. I hope that would answer your question. But if they can demonstrate they've been performing work up to $1,000 for a period of 4 years independently at the journey level of above, we think that would qualify them for our B2 classification, which would be pretty exciting because we looked at that classification as the entry into the full B license at some point.
And I was just referring to our legal team, and he was telling me that they do have to do a 1099 if you perform work over $600. So that would be reported to IRS. Any other board member comments? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, I will continue on the next item, which is H3. The next item can be found on page 185. It's an update regarding a bill that took effect this year and updated statute to allow CSLB to collect applicant or licensee email addresses. The law requires that an applicant or licensee provide the email address when they apply or when they renew, and that the email addresses are not public record. Recently, there has been discussion over the appropriate use of CSLB contacting applicants and licensees using the email addresses provided. CSLB currently uses the email addresses for the following: distributing the California Licensed Contractors newsletter and industry bulletins to ensure licensee are informed about updates and changes in the industry. Also recruiting subject matter experts for exam development to ensure CSLB's licensees exam remain current with industry trends. While there have been requests from both industry and other state agencies, CSLB cannot provide these email addresses to them per statute. This item is informational only. Are there any comments from the board? Are there any comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll turn the table now to Chief of Public Affairs, Catherine White, for the next agenda item.
Thank you, Diana. We're going to share 2 videos that were created this fall by television specialist Amy Lawrence. The first was for Construction Inclusion Week, which was October 14th through the 18th. The week builds awareness and celebrates inclusion and belonging while providing educational and business resources for the construction industry. This was shared on social media that week and also posted on our YouTube channel. David, can you please play the video?
Embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion in the construction industry strengthens the workplace and fosters innovation. CSLB proudly supports Construction Inclusion Week and provides training and resources for applicants and licensees to thrive. Learn more at cslb.ca.gov.
Thank you, David, for sharing that, and thank you, Amy, for creating it. The second video is tips for hiring an HVAC contractor. As we continue to create more tips videos for consumers, an HVAC contractor video was pertinent as consumers may need to fix their heaters this winter or venture their ACs in the spring and summer. And David, if you can please play the second video.
If your air conditioning stops working or you need a new heater, you will need to hire an HVAC contractor. HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. HVAC contractors install, repair, and maintain the heating and cooling systems that regulate your home's temperature and keep you comfortable. Before hiring an HVAC contractor, here's some information to help you avoid problems and to make sure your project runs smoothly. Start by doing your research and hiring a licensed contractor. HVAC systems vary from home to home. For example, you may have a split system with separate heating and cooling components. Make sure the contractor you hire is experienced with your system and that they're licensed by CSLB. You should look for someone with a C20 warm air heating, ventilating, and air conditioning classification. All C20 contractors are required to carry workers' compensation insurance regardless of whether they have employees. Licensed contractors have met requirements that include passing trade and law exams, having work experience in the trade, and undergoing a background check. Avoid unlicensed contractors who don't have these protections and often ask for too much money up front and may not complete the job correctly. You can ask friends or neighbors for licensed contractor referrals or use CSLB's Find My Licensed Contractor tool to search licensed HVAC contractors in your area. Get at least 3 bids and check references. You should obtain detailed bids that include information on costs, contractor availability, energy efficiency, and warranties. Don't just go with the lowest bid, and do your research into who is the best contractor for your project. Ask contractors for their license number and check their references and reviews. You can use CSLB's Check the License tool to search a contractor's license number to see if there have been any complaints against their license. Get a written contract. Make sure all the details and expectations of your project are written into the contract. Be as specific as possible. The contract should include all the work that will take place, a payment schedule, and what materials will be used, including specific brands and model numbers. It should also include a detailed timeline of when the work will take place and any warranty information. Ask your contractor if a permit will be required and who will pay for it. Also, you should ask your contractor to pressure test your ductwork, as you may have leakage in your attic that, if not corrected, will result in higher energy bills. Don't sign the contract unless you completely understand the terms, and don't feel pressured into making an immediate decision. You want someone you can trust to get the job done right. Don't pay more than 10% down or $1,000, whichever is less. And it's very important you don't make progress payments that exceed the value of the work performed. For example, don't pay for HVAC equipment that has not been delivered and installed. Stay organized. Keep a file of all paperwork pertaining to your project, including all contract documents, warranties, and payment information. You may need to reference them later. Don't make the final payment until you're satisfied with the completed work. You can find more information and resources on hiring an HVAC contractor at cslb.ca.gov.
Thank you, David, for playing that, and thank you again, Amy, for your work on those videos. As noted earlier, Public Affairs will be working on an educational video to provide consumers the key details before signing a contract on an ADU, including the real cost of building an ADU, so consumers are not paying much up front. We look forward to working with Steve Pinelli on this. And with that, I'll turn back to Public Affairs Committee Chair Love for any board or public comment.
Thank you, Catherine. This item is an update only. Are there any board comments?
I have a comment on the great work on the videos and the Construction Inclusion Week. I don't know if we had any opportunity to connect with any of the GCs. There's like 5 or 6 primary general contractors that sponsor that event, and there are events that are happening across the Bay Area, and it'd be great if we had some caption of those events to kind of support the effort. And I can help with that.
Thank you, Henry.
Any other board?
I will make a comment just on the C20 HVAC contractor video. I appreciate the emphasis on permits, making sure that it's so much needed for the industry. Right now there is it's, as board member Pinelli understands, it's kind of a wild, wild west on permits in that space. So appreciate that portion.
Any other board comments? I just have one comment. I think the video was very well put together, and I thank staff and all the people who contributed in putting together that video. The one thing that I did see that I thought was, I don't want to call it a fun fact, but we'll call it a fun fact since it's the holiday, is I hope no consumer has a file as large as I saw on that video for a project. That was a big file, okay? Okay. So are there any comments from the public? Okay. With that, thank you for your attention to the public affairs items, and I will turn it back to the chair, Mark.
Thank you. So with that, thank you, Diana Love. We'll now move into closed session. Only board members can remain in the room. And with that, during closed session, that will be our last item on the agenda. The agenda item is not available for viewing by the public. After closed session, we'll briefly reconvene in open session and adjournment. The adjournment will not be live streamed. So we'll take a quick 5-minute break so the room can clear, and then we'll start closed session.
You hang around for the tour?
And seeing the education required for apprentices in the sheet metal industry.